Dollars and Cents is made on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples. We pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australia Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leake, the Senior Content Producer here at the Australia Institute, and as always, I'm talking to our Chief Economist, Greg Jericho. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Elinor.
How are we doing this week?
Look, doing okay.
Doing okay?
Yep, Parliament has been sitting, so it's been a busy week. Thankfully, Amy Romakis has been back, so I haven't had to do too much of the live blogging, but yeah, it's been a busy week and lots.
Yeah, it sure had. Even for sitting weeks, I feel like a lot's happened.
Yeah,
which we will get to in
Yes.
this podcast. Yeah. But first off, Greg, last week you promised that we would talk about wages, and so we shall. So it must be. We have new wage data out, Greg. Greg, have our wages just absolutely exploded?
Exploded. No.
Are we all earning just absolute stonks?
Yeah, the wages breakout. Sorry, we're going to have to wait another 3 months to
wait
find
for the breakout.
Yeah, the overall figures for both public and private sector wages together came in at 3.2% annual growth, which was exactly the same as what it was in March. If you look at private sector wages, which are probably more important in terms of what the Reserve Bank might be thinking, they were 3.1%, which is down from 3.2% in March and down from 3.4% in December last year. So they've gone from 3.4 to 3.2 to 3.1.
Yep.
That seems to be the opposite direction to what would happen in a wages breakout. So
yeah, well, I mean, was it back in June when the RBA raised interest rates? One of the things that Michelle Bullock talked about was, concerns about wages breaking out, a wage price spiral driving higher inflation. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it was May when she.
May. Sorry, apologies.
And it wasn't so much. It was she wasn't thinking that there was a wage breakout, but she was worried that there might be one. She wanted to keep those expectations of wages down.
The expectations are accurate.
Yeah, and this was in a quarter. So the Reserve Bank hiked interest rates for the third time in a row in a quarter in which the quarterly wage growth for the private sector was just 0.7%, which was the slowest for, I think, going back to like 2021 or something, very slow. And even if we did that over 4 quarters, it'd be, 2.8% wage growth, which is pretty, well, let's just say it is very comfortable for inflation being below 3% when your wages are actually 3%. There's no sort of driving there. So, a real sense of there's no sign of wages taking off. In fact, the opposite, and a sign that all this talk from the Reserve Bank that, we've got a tight labour market. Now, when they talk about a tight labour market, as we point out in the past, it's talking about, there's too few people unemployed and they want unemployment to go up. And the reason why is they think if there's too few unemployed, then that means people can bargain for higher wages and things. And that's generally the indicator of, is the labour market tight? Is wages growth seems to be taking off because employers are really struggling to get workers, and so they're having to offer higher wages to keep their staff and to attract new staff.
Yeah.
We're not seeing that. And so it really suggests that even 4.4%, 4.5% unemployment, which is around where we are at the moment, maybe that was historically low, but maybe not no more. And, we had 2.5, 3 years almost of unemployment being around 4% and even lower. And maybe that's where we should be aiming, rather than, as the Reserve Bank is going, we still need to get to maybe 4.7, 4.8% to get wages down. It's like, well, wages are down,
Yeah. And, just going back to the idea that a wage price spiral could occur leading to inflation, that this idea that the RBA has. I mean, we've talked about previously that, in recent times, especially after the pandemic, it was corporate profits that were actually contributing a lot to the rising inflation at the time. out of curiosity, how do our wage increases compare to, say, corporate profits over the last few years?
Because right now is profit reporting season, as they call it in the financial markets.
Do they?
They do. They actually literally do.
This is a world I think I'm happy to not be a part of.
Yeah, you mean you're not an avid reader of the Financial Review?
Well,
for shame.
For this podcast, sometimes I do, yeah.
So it's because we're into the last year's financial year has finished, so all the annual reports have been done and getting published, and they outline all the profits basically of the previous year, and we're seeing some pretty nice profits. BHP, we're talking 9% increase in profits. The banks are between 9 and 10% increase in profits. Rio Tinto, there was this because Rio Tinto and BHP are both doing well in copper, and apparently copper prices have exploded. Rio Tinto's profits just for the first half of this year are up, I think, 46%. Their cash
46% increase to be clear.
So
over a year.
Yeah, and so all of these profits that we're seeing, that I've mentioned, they're well above inflation and well above what wages are going up.
Us poor plebes are making.
Whereas, of course, wage growth for every industry in Australia, on average, was slower than inflation over the past year. Yeah. So it didn't matter where you worked.
Not even in those juicy AI data centers that are being built?
Bizarrely not.
What?
But not even in sort of the construction sector, which there's been a lot of talk, the data centers. Okay, maybe there's not much employment in the data centers, but all the buildings going to really set fire to the construction market, and we're going to be really struggling with workers. And maybe yes, but we're still not seeing anywhere near the kind of increases in wages that we saw back in the 2000s when there really was a construction boom in the mining sector.
Yeah.
Not happening here. And in fact, really, if you look at the figures, as pointing out, the private sector wages only went up 3.1% compared to the overall of 3.2%. Basically, the reason why the overall wages remained steady was that there were some decent wage growth agreements in some public service workers. But again, that's kind of not reflective of anything, because a lot of the public sector workers are generally enterprise bargaining agreements for 3 years. There's a lot of negotiation. So when they get agreed to is not very reactive to current events, shall we say. So it's more the private sector ones are really a better guide of how things are going. Plus the private sector is much larger than the public sector, and things are going backwards, or at least going down, shall we say. Real wages are going backwards, but certainly the actual wage growth going down. So, maybe Reserve Bank stop worrying that, they've got to the point where they're saying, no, there's no wages breakout now, but we have to raise interest rates because there might be one in 6 months if we don't raise them. It's like, Jesus, that just gives you an excuse to do anything.
Yeah.
You can say, I've decided to take off today because I might get sick in 6 months' time and I just want to be careful.
Is this the excuse you're planning to take to Richard later?
Yeah, I got about an hour and I'll be gone. I think I'm going to be feeling a bit
ill. I think he'll believe that,
I think my stomach's going to be a bit bad around December. So just to be sure, I'll take off now just to,
Yeah.
It's kind of that, it's really kind of bizarre that they realize that they can't even pretend anymore that there is this wage explosion. But then they're like, well, how do we justify raising rates?
But what if there was a
What if?
What
if? If we don't do it, there might be. And so that's why.
It's funny how that reasoning is used for the wage explosion and not the profits.
Not the profit explosion. No, they don't. Well, as we've pointed out in the past, they never sort of go, profits are exploding. And, you might say, oh, look, that's the miners. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that Australians buy and are used to make things that Australians buy that involve copper. And I'm sure that price is going to flow through to something. And it's not like, it's this sense that, iron ore prices, coal prices, that are for metallurgical steel or for copper or things like this, that, no, they just go overseas and we never see the impact of them again. Everything goes around, comes around.
Well, don't worry, all the profits are going overseas. Very good. Yeah.
Anyway, so no wages breakout. Everyone calm down. And also, if you're feeling like your wages are probably not keeping up with the price or you feel like you're worse off, you probably are.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, moving on, Greg. This, as we previously said, has been a very, very busy week, even for a sitting week, I think. The government has passed 2 pieces of legislation with the help of the coalition this week, both the gambling reforms and the NDIS bill. Let's start with the gambling reforms.
The most significant gambling advertising reform by any Australian government ever.
The system is so broken, and it's no wonder we're the biggest losers in the world per capita. And now the government's trying to claim this huge victory for just doing the bare minimum that really doesn't deal with the issues that we're facing.
So these reforms come 3 years after the Murphy Review's final report, which recommended a total ban on gambling advertising, which is something Australia Institute research from earlier this year showed would be extremely popular. 77% of Australians support a ban on gambling advertising, but this bill does not include that. Greg, what's actually changing in these reforms?
Not a lot as far as people are going to notice. Certainly not a lot in terms of how it's actually going to affect problem gambling. Yeah. And you're quite right. The Murphy report, I think they've accepted about 3 of more than 30 recommendations. So,
great.
So, okay, what's in the bill and what was the purpose of all of this? It was all about gambling advertising. Yeah. It wasn't like, as we saw a decade or so ago or more, about pokies reform and trying to limit pokies and things like this. There was nothing actually limiting anyone being able to gamble, whether it be on horses or sport. It was all basically about the advertising and the inducements. So what's in the bill? Well, they're putting in a daytime cap on gambling ads on TV.
Just on TV.
Yeah. Yep. It was going to be between 6 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. There was a member by the coalition who really went hard and got them to start at 5 a.m. Now, it's a cap, not a ban. You're just in those periods going to have 3 advertisements every hour. You're allowed to have 3 gambling advertisements every hour during that period. Okay. So it's like what? You're still going to see a fair bit.
Once every ad break, once every couple ad break?
Yeah, pretty much. A similar kind of ban on gambling ads on radio. It only applies on school days and only for 2 hours of those school days. Basically, they try to coincide with the school drop-off and pick-up times. Not allowed to have gambling ads during those 2 hours, but everything.
Sure.
Yeah. Some restrictions on gambling ads during live coverage of sporting events, including online. There's going to be a ban on sport clubs being able to have gambling ads featured on their jerseys and things, which will affect more rugby league than AFL because AFL already had kind of some restrictions in place, which doesn't mean AFL is good. AFL have whole programs on TV and pay TV devoted basically to gambling that is set up notionally like, we're analysing the games this week and it's all about, so what are the good odds and what could you bet? Who should be first goal, you reckon this, So that's pretty much it. So what
did the coalition
want? See, the coalition came in really hard.
Did they?
God. They wanted to look like they were doing something, and so they brought in some amendments which the government has agreed to, and it's a lot of them around this thing called inducements. Okay, now inducements, which again were the recommendation they be completely banned, and inducements are things they're not so much adverts, although they're definitely used in the advertising of gambling. They're things like, let's say you're betting on a footy game, and you'll often hear this, and they'll say, if you bet on your team and they're ahead at 3/4 time, we'll pay out then.
Okay.
So it's if your basketball team is up at halftime by 10 points, or if it's up by 10 points anytime during the match, we'll pay out straight away. And so what that is, it's this kind of inducement of making people think like, oh, these are actually giving me really good odds, better odds. And what they don't realize is that the betting companies have analyzed all the data of games, and they kind of know, like, let's say it's a basketball game. And I think one is like, if your team at any point in the game is up by 20 points, we'll pay out. Yeah, like if you
bet that they're going to win.
Let's say you bet the Adelaide 36ers to win, and any point during that basketball game, the Adelaide 36ers are up by 20 points, they'll pay out.
Even if they don't win in the end?
As though they've won.
Okay.
And people think, oh, wow, what a great thing. And what they've done is crunch the numbers and realised that when a team is up by 20 points anytime during a game, they win 98.7% of the time. So it's actually that it's almost exactly the same, but it sounds like, oh, this is good, you know.
Yeah.
But what the experts on this, you know, those who have been campaigning against all these inducements and certainly were giving evidence to the Murphy Review and things like that, point out that these are not actually, they're not being offered anything really special.
But for especially problem gamblers.
Other things, you know, if you sign up with us, we'll give you $100.
That's
sign
also
up
an inducement.
You'll get $100 to bet, or you'll get a free bet, free $50 bet, and if it pays out, you win. And so it's all these kind of inducements. Now, what the amendments are being is that they're banning the direct marketing for 14 days after signing up with the betting company. So let's say you sign up with, say, Sportsbet or Bet365 or whatever these ones are. For the first 14 days, they're not allowed to send you like emails and things going, here's an inducement. But you're still going to be seeing the inducements on TV. So it's, it's just a direct.
So they're not totally banning inducements?
No, not at all.
Oh.
No, gosh. What? Oh, sweet summer child.
It's just you don't get emails about it for 14 days.
Yeah. And also if you have been someone who you have, in a sense, registered yourself as a problem gambler, they're not allowed to send you direct inducements either.
Yeah.
Like if you've been registered on this thing called BetStop, which is a gambling helpline, if you've taken yourself off that, you're not allowed to be induced for 3 months directly after that. And there's some bits about commissions and things like that. But, it's really small beer.
It's all pretty piss weak, really.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
You were losing so much money that the betting company could fly you to Melbourne, put you up at the casino, give you tickets to race day, provide you with drugs of your choice. And you're saying that this wasn't just a VIP manager trying to make more money or commission for themselves. The actual leaders of these companies knew, in some instances, what was happening and how the whole thing worked.
Well, not only did they know, they were participating in it.
Yeah, we've heard some pretty confronting testimony from some sports people who've come forward.
Yeah, with the Senate committee looking into this bill, as most bills have a committee sort of looking at the legislation, and some pretty shocking testimony of, when we're talking real inducements, sort of offerings of things to come and bet with us and keep betting. And look, at this point, I should say, hey, I worked in a casino for 6 years up in Cairns.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of problem gamblers.
Yeah.
And, in the casinos I've written back in the past, a lot of it is to do with pokies, but even sort of blackjack and all this, people who are there a lot, then who are there a real lot, and then who, we don't see anymore. And you hear, they basically lost their business or something, and it's due to gambling. This is not just, we're not talking about people who are, they've blown $50 and that meant they couldn't go see the movies. We're talking absolute destruction of lives. And because, a good way to think about this is we're really talking about sports gambling here. And you think about the cohort there and how it's sort of changed from sort of when you're talking about maybe horse racing or other things, that real sort of older cohort generally. It's a bit more just on the weekend maybe I go down the TAB. Sport has become, with the internet, so huge. There's always something on. I mean,
and you can always place a bet.
I watch a lot of US sport, and so basketball's on every day, baseball's on every day. If you're also into football and you're in the Premier League and all the league, there's so much sport. And who's attracted to sport? A lot of younger men. And you see the advertising. It's done in a real, hey, let's all get together and gamble on this thing. It's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I can't do something. I've got to wait for the last one on my quaddie. And it's pitched very much at men in their 20s and even women to, this is a way you can get in with the boys.
Yeah.
And it's advertised in a way that, when I was growing up and everything, was never seen with regards to, say, horse racing or that. Horse racing, there was never any advertising for it. It was like maybe the Melbourne Cups and, it's that season. But this is, hey, get on, while you're out on the beers or out having fun with your mates, put a bet on the game and make it more fun and get together. It's a group activity. You can actually advertising situations where you can bet in a group.
We are getting the balance right, letting adults have a punt if they want to, but making sure that our children don't see betting ads everywhere they look. Because we don't want kids growing up thinking that footy and gambling are inextricably linked.
The way the government is trying to sell this is that they've found a balance between those who are worried about the harm to gambling in Australia and gambling companies.
On one hand, we have all the people making
money
all this
out of
profit off all of these people who this public harm.
Yeah.
This public health crisis, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also they're saying, this is the most significant reform to gambling advertising ever. And it's like
the bar is so low.
It's like, isn't this the first?
Technically, you can't tell us it's not the most.
Yeah. Whereas the opposition, they have been going around sort of talking about how, again, really good balance because we want people to be able to have a bet. We don't want to be able to stop people having a bet if they want to have a bet. So this is what we sort of done.
But they're not banning gambling.
Yeah, this had nothing to do with it. There was, I think it was Dan Tian he gave his second reading speech on this, and I was listening, and it was all about, I love horse racing. I own a horse. My community, the steeplechase is the greatest thing. Everyone loves gambling. We got to keep that. It's a vital. I'm like, it was making it sound like, he's worked hard to make sure that gambling on racehorses wasn't banned. It's like,
is steeplechase still legal?
Yeah, in Victoria.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He didn't kind of mention the horses that died in this wonderful race that attracts
but people. They love betting on it.
They love betting on it. And you can't stop that. You don't want to stop that. And everyone's like, this wasn't about stopping it. It was about these inducements. It's about the direct advertising.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we won't have sports stars anymore directly advertising. Great. But, And also, look, at the last minute, the government also, with the coalition, one of the things was to introduce an opt-out thing where you can opt out of getting a one-stop shop, apparently, where you can opt out of gambling advertising. But the problem,
like online? Or?
Yeah, online, and it's like on a streaming service maybe, but apparently, I was listening today on AM radio on ABC's AM, and an expert was saying, that's pretty unworkable, and it will take, and also that's been kicked into the long grass of when is this going to come into place? Because of course, lots of consultation will need to occur.
need to figure out how to make this unworkable thing workable.
Yeah. And as a few people point out, why opt out? Why not opt in? Why not have a button?
If you really want to see the gambling ads.
And of course, the reason why they haven't made it opt in is because no one wants these things.
No.
Except for the gambling companies. But hey,
but
balance.
even if you're pro gambling, or if you love a flusser, as they say,
oh look,
are you going to opt in for the gambling ads?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't do a lot of betting on sports, but I have in my time, and I hate them. You know, and I.
Everyone hates being advertised
hates
to
these
as
things.
anything.
So,
yeah. And you said, it's destroying people's lives, destroying people's businesses, but it also, causes more further harm in the community because it leads to increased risks of homelessness, increased domestic violence. Increased risk of suicide. Yeah. So it's just such a huge public harm, and sort of the concept that we need to find a balance between that and the people making a profit off that. It's just horrifying, really.
Yeah, and as was pointed out by many people who were opposing this legislation, saying, hey, we've done this in the past. We didn't ban cigarette smoking. We banned the ads.
Yeah.
You can't, for so long. Basically, I can't remember in any time in my life, even though it might have been when I was like 3 or 4, cigarette ads on TV. Then on billboards. I can remember the billboards, And
I don't remember any.
Cricket was sponsored by Benson Hedges. It was the Benson Hedges Test Series. And, if we got rid of that, cricket will go broke. No, cricket's fine.
Yeah.
There's always something. And, we are able to do these things, but the government, unfortunately, chose not to.
No. All right. And just lastly, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but the NDIS bill was passed this week as well with the help of the coalition. Massive cuts to spending on the NDIS by, was it $37 billion over the next 4 years?
38, yeah.
Rationale given that, it's needed to ensure that the scheme is sustainable, spending's grown too much, so that future generations can access it, it needs to be cut now. That was the explanation. Obviously, it's faced huge amounts of criticism from disability advocates, from the crossbench, but has anything changed since we last discussed it? Are there any amendments to the bill?
There were some amendments, but real piecemeal stuff.
Compared to the massive cuts,
Yeah, nothing really directly. One of the big complaints of the bill from the disability sector was the suggestion that this gives the actual powers in the bill for the minister to be able to cut certain streams of funding by an arbitrary amount, in fact, up to 99%.
Yeah.
And the big one is the economic and community and social participation stream, which is very much in the target of the government to cut. We're talking 30, maybe 50%, just arbitrarily. And that means everyone who has funding, let's say you get $20,000 a year funding under that stream. If they say, it's going to be cut by 50%, then suddenly you're only getting 10,000 of that. And there's no review of your special circumstances or anything. It's just, no, the minister decides that everyone gets 50% cut.
Yeah.
So there was a suggestion that, we need to limit that and, make sure that there's limits on the powers. So there was an amendment I was reading going, and it seemed like, we're limiting if you are of a certain level of disability, and essentially talking about those who have a permanent disability, things like Down syndrome, that it's not a question of, you're going to get better and get over this, that you would be able to appeal the decision and restore your funding. I thought, okay, finally they've got some sense. Now I read, but this only applies to home care and another sort of living stream, and does not include community and social participation or living skills, because according to the legislation, learning living skills does not help with your health or your your life.
No,
apparently.
Everyone can be a shut-in.
Yeah, so it's at this absurd situation where, for someone like my daughter with Down syndrome, we might be able to still get funding for a carer to come and sit essentially at home and make sure she goes to the toilet and is fed and is safe during the day while my wife and I are at work. But we won't be able to get funding for her to go to an actual care centre where she learns skills, where she goes out in the community, does things, where she socializes because, oh no, that's not necessary or vital for her health and well-being.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is screwed up.
It just feels so dehumanizing.
It very much is. There's also real issues about the automation process of how this is going to be done. The disability sector is really worried that there's going to be abuses like we've seen in Four Corners this week, reporting on the aged care sector, where basically an automation process using algorithms to determine what gets approved. And as soon as you say algorithms, you know it's going to be crap.
Yeah.
And as you point out, $38 billion over 4 years because apparently it needs to be sustainable. And just remember, the government's going to pay out $48 billion in fuel tax credits over the next 4 years. And if they tax gas, they'd raise $68 billion. Yeah. So they've chosen basically to protect mining companies and gas companies rather than protect people with disabilities. So that's a choice. And I mean, the fact that the government had, for both the gambling and the NDIS, essentially had to do a deal with the coalition really gives away the sense this is a fairly conservative kind of we got to be fiscally responsible and also we don't want to hurt business too much. It's got that sense of things, and certainly not reeking of progressive, the type of thing that makes, like which we've seen recently, the government acting on housing, where they really went against the housing industry, which is still very loudly against it. And they were like, no, this is something important. We're going to stand up. This time round, didn't quite so much see that, especially when you do those figures looking, hey, you could have taxed gas. You could have cut the fuel tax credits. Instead, you chose this other thing and you're claiming it's all about being sustainable. That really gives a sense of their priorities.
Made structural changes to how the care is delivered even to make it more sustainable. Yeah.
So
bring it back into the public sector, perhaps?
So the disability sector is foreseeing a lot of abuse to come and neglect because, remember, the needs of these people with disabilities not going to go away. It's just they're no longer funded to that extent. Someone's still got to care for them. Not everyone is going to have someone who can afford to take time off work to care for them. Not everyone's even going to have a family member, a parent who is around to do this, because we're not really talking children, because most children are at school. So all good. We're talking adults. And, let's say you're a 40 or 50-year-old who doesn't have any parents, mightn't even have a brother or sister. Where are you? And it's, anyway, it as I say, I know I wrote in the live blog, maybe we should already start planning the Royal Commission for 2031, 32. I think that seems like a fairly good time to set
Seems like a pretty accurate call. Well, what a cheery note.
Yeah,
what a eventful week in Parliament.
It is. I mean, Parliament and governing is not always lovely, and I think we saw some of the darker sides of the sausage being made this week. But we will be back, Elinor.
Yeah.
Next week.
We will.
Next week, we're actually going to be getting close to GDP season, not profit-taking season. Next week, we'll see the first of the June quarter national accounts stuff. So we'll have a lot of info on private sector investment. That will be interesting, basically, to see what is happening with data centers. How are they booming? And is it all just chips coming in, or actually people doing some construction? So we'll be back next week to talk all about that. But this week's episode of Dollars and Cents was recorded on the 20th of August, and some things may have changed. If you'd like to read all about the wages and what's going on there, go and check out my column on the Guardian Australia site. If you want to check it all the other stuff you need to know about the world, including gambling, including the NDIS, including carbon offsets and everything else, head on over to thepoint.com.au. Stonks of great stuff there. And all this week we've had the live blog and it has been fantastic. So please check it out. As always, our music is from Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone, have a great week. Take care of yourself and we'll see you all next week.
See ya.